Hey, welcome in, everybody. This is the Big Chief Show post-day, really, more so than anything, wrap-up edition of the National Football League. Obviously, we're going to talk Kansas City Chiefs today. And look, Mike, I could live with 8:30 football every day, every Sunday.
Yeah.
Tell you what, when your team plays at 8, and of course it helps when they win, but when you play the very first game of the day, you win, and then you've got the rest of the day to watch unencumbered. That makes your Sunday football viewing a whole lot more fun.
You know, Freddie D, it reminds me of my days when I was in Cali. I mean, the first games kicked off at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you were done by 1. You could go get 9 holes in, or you could do chores in the backyard, do whatever you want. You had the whole rest of the day ahead of you. And then I remember visiting my cousin in Jersey one time, and the second games don't start till 4:15, sometimes 4:30. It's just like it's already dark out. Because as you know, this is the first weekend sans daylight savings time.
That's right. It's daylight savings time, isn't it?
By 6 o'clock, it's dark. Hello. And it's just like, oh, my God, this is terrible. So, but, 8:30 games, I'm all for it. So I'm sure the players don't really like it. But, hey, it's the NFL. They got to protect the shield, and they got to make their go-Ray-me money. So.
Could be a lot worse. And, and this much you can definitely take away from today's game. And like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about just some of the specifics. And then, of course, we'll get more into it. The Chiefs are going into a bye week in Week 10. So, obviously, a huge win today by this Kansas City Chiefs team. And I think the biggest answer today was and again, not that there was, there was lingering doubt, but we keep hearing each week about how much more improved and how much better this Chiefs defense is, how it's the best defense Pat Mahomes ever played with. And certainly today, I mean, let's call it what it is. We saw another example again today where the defense helped, if not, won you the game today. But before we get to that, I was going to say, I mean, you look at that German fans today and the German crowd, they were into it. Like that game was rocking and rolling from kickoff. And again, it helped that it was a very good football game between two very good football teams. But you had a German crowd that was well-versed and very well-schooled on what was going on throughout the course of the game today. And it's good to see that, as we continue to go along with what's going on, as this thing grows internationally, feather in the hat of the NFL, another good overseas international game today, Mike Babbo.
Yeah, no, it was a very compelling game. I think the NFL did an excellent job, Freddie D, scheduling 2 marquee teams, and whoever wins this game, the Chiefs ended up prevailing. Whoever won this game has a leg up on, of course, the tiebreaker for supremacy in the AFC. These are 2 certainly high-powered offenses. Certainly the Miami Dolphins were number 1 in yards, total yards per play, and in points going into this game. But Steve Spagnuolo's crew once again did a number on a very high-powered offense. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa did not look himself. Now, they held Tyreek Hill as about as anybody that I've seen anybody do. Jalen Waddle, was hurt early on. He came back, but he hadn't been affected by that. He did get banged out, but I'll tell you what, they held Raheem Mostert in check for sure. He did get a touchdown, but he only had like 45 yards of rushing, if I remember correctly. So, 85 yards, but those are a hard 85 yards. I mean, I think he only had 35 yards in the first half. So good for the Chiefs. Again, they're in the driver's seat in the AFC. But good for the AFC, good for the NFL to schedule a game. And you're right. I mean, that Frankfurt crowd was in it, and they're going to get another opportunity next week too. So good for them.
This was the 3rd lowest production day of the season for Tyreek Hill. Like you said, I mean, he led the team in receptions, 8 catches for 62 yards, but no big plays, right? And you didn't have the highlight reel plays. You didn't have the, look, he wasn't throwing the deuces to anybody as he was running by him for a touchdown. And, the one thing that the Chiefs did, and I think that this was kind of underreported or really this was something that I mean, at least from what I heard, I felt like kind of got left to the side when talking about the Tyreek Hill and Chiefs matchup was that, the Chiefs know what he's good at. Like they know what he's good at. They know what he's not good at. And the one thing they know that he's not good at is he doesn't like to get physical at the line of scrimmage, right? He doesn't like getting hit. And the Chiefs did a lot of that today. They kept everything in front of them. And Spags, again, say what you want about Steve Spagnuolo. I'll tell you what, when you give that guy pieces to work with, as you saw today, as you saw what this offense, what this defense was able to do, especially in the fourth quarter, Mike, when, you saw the tables turning in that third quarter, Chiefs go up big, 21-0 into halftime. And then in that third quarter, that Miami offense, which you knew was going to get off the canvas at some point, finally got rolling again in the third quarter. But when you needed your defense to make a stop, especially after the bonehead mistake by one Chris Jones in that fourth quarter where, you're going to force a 4th and long. He gets into it and pushes the offensive lineman for the Dolphins after the play. Gets the 15-yard penalty. Mostert scores the very next play. And so you're starting to think, and I know I started texting people haphazardly, look, if they get the ball again and we don't stop them, that's going to be, Dolphins are going to win this football game. But, Chiefs defense did what it needed to do. And for a group that, and you and I talked about this a lot, Mike, before the season started throughout the preseason was, what kind of, without Chris Jones, you were worried about what this defensive line was going to look like. And it was still kind of like, all right, even with him, like who's going to step up? You don't have Frank Clark. You don't have Carlos Dunlap. Tell you what, though, Mike, whether it's Chris Jones, which, as you know, already is one of the best D linemen in the NFL, but, whether it's been Mike Dana, whether it's been George Karlaftis, whether it's been just a group effort by the linebackers as well, this team today slowed down a prolific Miami offense. And my question for you, Mike, is not so much about the Chiefs, because you and I will talk about the offense, and we'll talk about this again throughout the course of the next week and a half. What does this tell you about the Miami Dolphins?
They're kind of Jekyll and Hyde, and if Tyreek Hill doesn't go off and have, a Tyreek Hill type of day, it may be a long day. I mean, the same thing against Buffalo. If I remember correctly, that offense, the Miami offense was held in check by Buffalo's defense as well. Now, granted, that was in upstate New York, but still, I mean, they're look, they are a very high-profile, prolific offense, but they still and they need A-Chain back. They need to run the ball a lot more, and so. But Tua Tagovailoa was under 200 yards today. If he's got to get at least, and he only threw the ball, I think he threw the ball 34 times, but very short passes. And again, losing Jalen Waddle for a time being was a problem. They need a tight end. I think they really need a tight end that could actually just go out into the middle of the field and someone who could, because look, your deep threats, you got 2 deep threats. You don't have 2, but they need someone. They need or a Wes Welker or somebody like that, or a pass catching running back, because Raheem Mostert didn't do much coming out of the backfield catching passes today. So, but I think that says a lot. This game says a lot more about Steve Spagnuolo's defense. They have been playing at an elite level for the last, really, the entire season. I mean, and I know a lot of Chiefs fans are really frustrated by this because they're used to Patrick Mahomes, throwing for 3 or 4 touchdowns and for over 350 yards, et cetera. This is not the 2023 Chiefs. That's not who they are. I'm sorry. I mean, they sprinkle some runs every once in a while. Some Travis Kelce. Hell, even Travis Kelce didn't lead the team in targets today. He only had 4 targets. So they are learning on the fly, but they are relying on that defense, which is something that Chiefs fans are going to have to get used to. This is week 9, right? This is week 9 in the NFL. I mean, you are. This is who you are. So, hey, be thankful, because defense wins championships.
As the trade deadline comes and goes on Tuesday. And look, the NFL is still not – look, we know that you're going to see blockbusters in baseball. You're going to see blockbusters in the NBA. I mean, that's the trade deadline is definitely a big part of that in both football – or excuse me, both NBA and Major League Baseball. The NFL is just not there yet. right? There's just something about it. And I know you and I talked about this earlier in the week, and you made a great point that, it's probably time for the NFL to push back their trade deadline a couple weeks. I don't think you'd lose anything other than the fact that you probably have a few more teams that had dropped off as far as, what they're able to do playoff-wise. But I think if you moved it to like week 11 as opposed to week 9, I think you might see a little bit more robust movement because like you said, Mike, week 9, you're barely halfway through the season now. Yeah. Right. Well, you are halfway through the season in week 9, right? So
I mean, there are teams that are 3-5. Look at the Raiders. I mean, they were just left for dead. They were 3-5, but in 3-5 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, when there's only a 16-game schedule, it's like, okay, not too good. Our chances aren't too good. 3-5 is, you're still in it. You're still in it. By the way,
I'm shaking my head because we've got the Eagles and Cowboys. And, Dak,
Dak will not lose. He will not win you a game, but he'll lose a game. That's it. I mean,
boy, I tell you what, that might be the most adept description of the Dak Prescott. And look, we know before the ankle injury, he was always wonky for this type of stuff, but, yeah, I look.
He's a better version of Russell Wilson right now.
He's a what?
He's a better version of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson will lose you a game for sure, and he definitely won't win you. Russell Wilson's a mess. I know he beat the Chiefs last week, but that was
Russell Wilson. Though it's weird about Russell Wilson, and we've talked about this briefly throughout the court. Just throughout whether it was last year or this year, just a little bit so far this season. It's hard to understand how this dude just fell off the way he did. He's played better this season, and his numbers, aren't terrible. But to go from being a guy that, you could count on in the fourth quarter to now he's just kind of wonky. Real quick, 3rd and 26, another penalties and sacks have crushed the Cowboys on this last drive, which, again, they got into the red zone once again with a puncher's chance of winning this game. But, again, sacks and, he throws short of the isn't that a pain in the butt? That's going to do it. He hits CeeDee Lamb, like, right inside the 5. 3 Eagles converge. That's going to do it. You mentioned Travis Kelce real quick. 4 targets, 3 catches, 14 yards. Look, man, and again, I don't want to – it's too easy to devolve into why didn't the Chiefs do anything at the trade deadline? And, of course, whether you listen to Chiefs radio, Kansas City radio, whether you read the national outlets and what they were talking about, how the Chiefs didn't want to do anything at the deadline. Here's my and I'll throw this out to you, Mike, being the baseball guy that you are, and I get it. It's a little bit different drafting in Major League, in the NFL versus giving up prospects. When you have a deficiency in your wide receiver room as great as you do in Kansas City, do you really feel like you're gonna lose that many picks, or that's the haul is gonna be that steep? If you're the Chiefs trying to get like somebody's number 2, perhaps?
You need look no further than the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 or 3 seasons, right? Last year, what they do is that they pull off the deal of the century, getting Christian McCaffrey, all-worldly Christian McCaffrey, and all he's done is scored a touchdown in 17 straight NFL games. I don't even know what they gave up to get him, but it doesn't matter.
It's like a second, a third, and a fifth, or something like that. Like they definitely didn't give up a first-round pick.
Okay, so what? I mean, are you going to get? Is your first-round pick next year going to be as valuable as Christian McCaffrey? I mean, really? I mean, you're looking at not potential. You're looking at CMC. I mean, the best running back out there, who's for fantasy football players knows he's a top 2 pick in fantasy football. This year, what do they do? They get Chase Young, a disgruntled. Yeah, I don't even think he was just disgruntled. I mean, for certain, Washington wasn't going to pick up his option, but I mean, when he's healthy, he's a ball buster. And so, what do the Niners do? They roll the dice. They go. I mean, John Lynch does it again. I mean, so it all depends upon what Brett Veach was going to do. What was he going to overpay for a wide receiver? Because there weren't that many available. Devontae Adams was not going anywhere, and I'm convinced of that now, knowing what we know.
Apparently, the Jets made a offer.
The Jets made an offer. We don't know what it is, but it didn't matter because Mark Davis wanted to. Because Mark Davis, for one thing, he traded a first and a second to get him. He wasn't going to dump him a year and a half later for a cheese sandwich. I don't care what it was. They already got they already had to give up, or they only got a 4th round pick for Darren Waller. Granted, he's on IR now, but I mean, after signing him to a big deal, and we all know now that Mark Davis had other things in mind for the Raiders, and that's why he was going to hold on to Devontae Adams. I don't think D-Hop was available. If he was, I mean, why not overpay for him? D-Hop, I mean, has shown with a rookie quarterback last week, he scored 3 touchdowns. This is someone you need. I mean, and he was, with Deshaun Watson, he was a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. So are you going to roll with Sky Moore? Are you going to roll with Rashee Rice? Are you going to roll with MBS? I mean, come on. You need to give.
Well, you are now.
Well, you are now. Exactly.
You are now.
So, what you're going to do is you're going to roll with your defense is what you're going to do. And I'm sorry, Jarek. I mean, and then Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco as your running back tandem. I don't know. I understand Chiefs fans worry. So it's weird.
You know what this reminds me of?
We don't even know if they kicked the tires. We don't even know if Brett Veach made any phone calls, right?
Well, I mean, and look, whether he did, whether he didn't, I mean, like we said, he was so hell bent on these draft picks, and look, it's like I texted my cousin earlier today. I mean, as irritated as I might be with Brett Veach for his lack of involvement and or doing anything receiver wise at the deadline, it's hard to be too upset with this guy when you consider that, look, he's built a pretty good offensive line, he's built a pretty good defensive line. I mean, he's built a tremendous defense on the fly. I think the Chiefs are under this guise that, all right, look, we had 3 rookie guys in our secondary last year who were playing big minutes and made big plays in the playoffs and down the stretch and helped us win a Super Bowl last year. Why can't we have that same kind of mentality or that same kind of progress and development with our wide receivers when, oh, by the way, not only will we think they get better, but, oh, by the way, you've got the best quarterback on the planet throwing to them. So, I get the thinking and I get the thought process. The question I've got, me and Tab talked about this today. What did you see during the summer? What were you watching or what were these guys doing? And I guess maybe that's where, Mike, the whole, it's one thing to be running around in shorts and we get it. They go down to Texas. They play catch with Mahomes and we're thinking, okay, great chemistry. Apparently that chemistry from over the summer has yet to translate because how many times did you see Mahomes after today? And he said it 2 or 3 times during the post-game interview. We've got to get this offense right. We got to keep working on it because we can't keep going with this offense the way it is.
Yeah, you could tell as he was coming off the sidelines especially in the first half, even though they were up 21-0, he was visibly frustrated with some of the routes that his receivers were running. Sometimes the fact they just weren't getting open, they weren't getting any separation at all, and he needs to find some type of a deep threat. I'm sure that the only salve of this whole thing is that Tyreek Hill did not go off and they won the ball game. Because if it was the other way around, oh man, I mean, Chiefs Twitter would be losing their shit right now.
No, they absolutely would be. And look, I'm slowly buying into all right, look, we're a defensive team first. This kind of reminds me of that 2003 Super Bowl that the Patriots won, or excuse me, the 2001. Well, really the first 3 Super Bowls the Patriots won. We forget they weren't the offense that we came to know the Patriots to be. That was a very, ball control oriented, play good defense and don't make mistakes. And of course the Chiefs can certainly follow that strategy as well. All right, let's look at the rest of the AFC West. No Broncos today. They've got to bye. Chargers are going to play tomorrow night. They play the New York Jets. But of course, really the biggest story of the week this week was your Las Vegas Raiders, our boy Mark Davis, finally looking like his dad finally. Now, again, you could argue, maybe Al Davis wouldn't have gotten this position to begin with, but let's call it what it is. You as far as what I mean by that is, you know what? He took the bull by the horn. He made a decision when you saw a team that was not getting any better. And of course, Mike, as you might imagine, in the fallout of the Josh McDaniels, of course, all the media, and rightfully so, as we've started to read more and more about, was Josh McDaniels. Not only was he just not a good head football coach, he's just kind of an asshole in general.
He's a terrible leader, Fred. And if I may, he's a piece of shit. Okay, he is a piece of shit of a football coach. He's a piece of shit of a personnel manager. I mean, the story that I read, which just absolutely blew my mind, because everybody knows. And look, I've got it on firsthand knowledge on how during team meetings, during practices, in film session or whatever, he just absolutely shits on people. He points out their mistakes. He railroads them. He makes them feel 2 inches small. And in the team meeting that was called, which was Monday or Tuesday before the practice, before the Detroit game, it was a players meeting where they could air all their grievances. And you think about it, I have a hard time believing that he was the one who called this. I would imagine that Mark Davis himself implored him to call this team meeting so they could air out their grievances. Because knowing what we know now about Josh McDaniels, there's no fucking way that he would let these guys speak their mind, okay? Because that locker room was tight. People didn't want to come into the facility. I mean, it felt like they were going into prison. Anyway, all these players air out the grievances, and by all accounts, everybody pointed the finger at Josh McDaniels and ripped on him for his lack of communication, his lack of motivation skills. And when it was time for him to speak, Freddie D, did he speak? No. He let Antonio Pierce speak for him, the linebackers coach and now the interim head coach. And then he goes out into the practice hours later and he shrivels up like a little ball, like a little bitch. So for the entire head coaching career, Freddie D, where he shits on people for every little mistake they make, the one time he gets a taste of his own medicine, he checks out. I'm done with you. You're a hypocrite. I want nothing to do with you. And Mark Davis, shame on Mark Davis, because he had Josh McDaniels in his sights from day one at the end of the 2021 season. He didn't even give Rich Bisaccia a chance. The guy who resurrected that team from the dead after all of this shit that team went through, with John Gruden, with Henry Ruggs killing a woman and her dog, going 145 miles an hour, driving at twice the legal limit, Damon Arnett brandishing weapons, all the crap. Rich Bisaccia, who's a special teams coach, and a special teams coach, Fred, as you know, is not a position coach. He's not an offensive guy or a defensive guy. He has to connect with everybody, because special teams are made with offensive and defensive players. They loved him to a man. They played for him. They went 10-7 after all of this controversy, and they made their first playoff since 2016. Doesn't even give him a chance. Sets his sights on Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels said, well, I have to have Dave Ziegler as my GM. Okay, fine, whatever. Oh, and I have to have Jimmy Garoppolo. Never mind the fact that Jared Stidham didn't look that half bad at the end of the 2022 season. No, he dropped him, let him go out to Denver to be a backup, and then just brings in Jimmy Garoppolo, who, by the way, has a broken foot, has to have surgery after signing him to a $72 million three-year deal, a $72 million deal. And then they have to restructure the deal and hope to God they cross their fingers that he doesn't fail the physical, which he didn't, and finally, and so he has no way to get ready, and he just absolutely shits on everybody. Screw him. Good riddance. And boom, just like that, Antonio Pierce did in a half as an interim coach with a rookie quarterback and a new offensive coordinator who had never called plays in his life, Bo Hardegree, scored more points in a half than Josh McDaniels, the offensive genius that he is in 8 games. The only time they scored more than 20 points was against the Patriots. That's when they got a sack in the end zone, a safety, to score their 20th and 21st point against the Patriots. Josh McDaniels, I hope for everybody else's sake in the NFL, you end up coaching middle school because you are disgusting. I want nothing to do with you. Be gone with you.
I love how
I'll help you pack.
And let's not escape the fact that this is all coming from somebody wearing a Freebasers shirt.
It was an old softball jersey. I got 25 Barry Bonds.
The only question I had was, where did you bat in the lineup?
Oh, I batted probably 8th and 9th. I sucked as a hitter.
So, folks, it's the intangibles he brought outside of what he did. He was basically the Moldy Maldonado of his softball team.
Did you see Antonio Pierce's press conference, his introductory press conference?
Look, here's my.
I was ready to suit up for myself.
Well, but look, and I've been doing this long enough because let me tell you something. I fell victim to the Herm Edwards Chiefs press conference way back when. I fell victim to Charlie Weiss being introduced as the head coach at the University of Kansas press conference.
What a fraud he was, right?
I got snookered into the Turner Gill. I came here to win Big 12 championships, press conference hype. So I'm not, and I'll give Landry Locker. This is the only thing I'll give him credit for.
You please, don't give him much.
One of the things he used to say was, do you win the press conference? And you always have to be careful when you win the press conference. And so, look, barring Antonio Pierce coming out and throwing his dick on the table and saying, look, this is a new era of Raider football. You know what I'm saying? It was going to be hard for him. I mean, he said he checked everybody. Even then, I might have been like, okay, we haven't seen this
press baby
before. All right. I see what kind of mentality we're bringing here.
In a high school football game, I'm not sure if you saw this, but during an interview with the sideline reporter, she retold a story to Antonio Pierce. He was coaching Cal Poly or some Polytechnic high school game, right? All right. And his guys were up 63-9 at half. And he wasn't happy. And you know what he did? Instead of taking him to the locker room, he took him behind the stadium and had him doing gassers for 20 minutes. And she said, "What'd you do that for?" He says, "It's about effort and execution." And I didn't like what they were doing.
Wow.
They actually assessed a delay of game penalty on him at the opening of the second half because they showed up late. I love it because it's about effort. It's about passion. Okay, it's about caring, and I haven't seen that in years, Freddie D.
No,
Josh McDaniels era.
I'm being a little tongue in cheek here, but no, I mean, my only thing was this. Love the press conference, love the energy, love everything about it, right? And it's just that, look, let's not be
I get it. We're not going to go 9-0. I get it. We're not going to go 9-0. We have a tough road.
Well, no. If you do that, I mean, look. You got what? The Jet. I mean, you beat the shit out of the Giants today, which, and like you and I said, though, that's what the Raiders, when they played teams that they were neck and neck with or a little bit better than, or teams that you thought, okay, this should be games that they should win, they hung around, they let them hang around, or they lost, they did something stupid. Whereas today was, look, the Raiders were the better team. The Raiders were the better coach team, and it showed in spades today. And that's something that you could argue, well, I know you can argue, we haven't seen from this Raiders team in a long time. So, look, you got a very winnable game next week against the Jets. Then you got the bye week. You come out of the bye week 5-5, playing with house money at that point.
No, actually, Freddie D, we don't have a bye week until after the Chiefs game. We play the Jets at home, and then we travel to Miami. Then we host the Chiefs. Then it's a bye week before we play the Vikings back in Vegas. So
week 14 is your bye week?
Week 13, 14,
week 13,
like
okay.
That. Yeah. I mean, but it is late. So, but you know what? considering the vibe in that locker room, I don't want to buy. I want to keep it going. It's
Yeah.
in baseball, a team is hot and they go into the All-Star break. They don't want to. They don't want 3 days off. They don't want 4 days off. Hell, let's keep playing. But I mean, look, and everyone says, well, it was the Giants. They didn't. Daniel Jones got lost early in the second quarter. With a knee injury. Okay, fine. All they had was Saquon Barkley. They don't have an offensive line to speak of. But you know what? Like, again, which is all true. But again, you know what? This is more effort than I've seen. I certainly saw more effort out of this than I did against the fucking Bears. And the Bears are absolutely horrible. They were left for dead, and the Raiders didn't even try. And hell, the best thing about the defense for the Raiders is Marcus Peters was out with a knee injury in the second half because he doesn't care. I don't think. He's a
little bit of a wild man. He's a little bit of a wild.
He let a pick six go through his hands once again. I mean, yeah, he's had a couple of. He had one pick six the week before, but I don't. It doesn't matter to me because I want to see effort, and that's what I finally saw for the first time in years. And again, new head coach, a rookie quarterback, and making his second start ever, and a new play caller. Now they probably used McDumdum's offensive scheme. I mean, what else are they going to do? The guy got fired on Tuesday, right? But still, I mean, you have the same players. And they finally fed Josh Jacobs a rock. He was just short of 100 yards. He should have had 100 yards, but he got dumped for a 3-yard loss in his last carry. So, but still, he had 2 touchdowns. And hell, Jacoby Myers got in on it. Even Devontae Adams, who had I think he had no targets in the first half. He was jumping around, loving it, cheering on his teammates. Why? Because they're winning. Because the offense was moving the ball, Freddie D. Finally.
And you guys play the Jets next week?
We play the Jets in Vegas next week. Okay. Then we travel to Miami. Then the Chiefs at home. Then the bye. Then the Vikings. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay. Real quick, let's just wrap up the Sunday that was, and then we'll get into we'll just give you guys a real quick what we think about tonight. We got Bills and Bengals coming up here momentarily, so we'll sign off here in just a second. Get you guys ready for that game, and then of course, obviously, the big Monday night game tomorrow, where you get the Chargers and the Jets. We mentioned the Cowboys and the Eagles. That game was going on right when we jumped on. 2023 final score there. Eagles now number 1 seed right now, best record in all football right now, 8-1. Dak Prescott though 374 yards, 3 touchdowns, but like I said, a couple costly sacks there in that down the stretch there for the Cowboys. Mike, I don't think I'm saying anything outlandish here. I mean, look, the Eagles, for all the talk about how, they just haven't looked right. I mean, they're 8-1 for crying out loud. They lost both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator, by the way. Right. Who, by the way, the one hallmark of both those teams is that they're both very well coached despite the talent levels of said teams. So, look, if you're an Eagles fan right now and, you're the NFL, look, I love my Chiefs, but if I had to power rank teams, I'd put the Eagles number 1 and the Chiefs 2 right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said. Let's see what happens with the Bills-Bengals game. I think the Bengals offense is starting to hit their stride finally. Yeah, and of course, Josh Allen, he's no
being healthy either. Goes a long way.
Yeah, being healthy goes a long way. I mean, of course, Damar Hamlin makes an emotional return to Cincinnati. I don't think he's playing tonight because he's stuck in the depth chart. But and I got to give a shout out to C.J. Stroud. I mean, the first round pick of the Texans. Oh my God, man, what a performance! I mean, after Baker Mayfield led the the Buccaneers back from the dead with that touchdown to that tight end with 50 seconds left.
46 seconds left to go.
46 seconds left. C.J. Stroud, like it was nothing. I mean, just engineered another drive. What do you have? 5 touchdown passes? 470 yards. And of course, I left him on my fantasy bench. Yeah, but no, he was great. We got to give some props to the Browns. They shut out the Cardinals. Granted, the Cardinals are playing a third-string quarterback, but I mean the Browns are just talk about a team leading with their defense. For crying out loud! I mean they were just phenomenal today. And then even though Lamar Jackson didn't have that great of a day, Gus Edwards had 2 more touchdowns, and they manhandled the Seahawks 37-3. So there's some really really top-notch teams. It seems like parity is not really in the NFL these days. I mean, you've got some really, really high-profile teams, of course, like the Chiefs and the Eagles and even the Dolphins. Let's face it. I mean, they look bad. I mean, their offense sputtered today, but I mean, for the most part, they're a high-powered offense. I mean, they're still number one in the NFL. Ravens are still up there, and and then there's some really bad teams too, right? I mean, the Bears are awful. I mean, the Rams. Oh my God, the Rams are just an absolute mess. I get it, man.
The Rams are what our boy Dennis Green say. They are who we thought they were, and that's exactly what the Rams are. By the way, can we give a shout out to our boy Bitter Mike Babbo? We did at the very beginning of the year before the season started, like kind of our preview special right before the season started. Who was our Super Bowl sleepers? And you said the Pittsburgh Steelers. We laughed at you. We made fun of you.
You ridiculed me.
We absolutely did. We ridiculed. You
almost hung me in effigy.
We're going to go that far, but we definitely we love bringing him on here too much. So why would we? We can't do that to him. He is a Raiders fan after all. Yeah. But I'll tell you what. After a horrific start from Kenny Two Gloves Pickett, they're now 5-3 after a 2016 win on Thursday against the Tennessee Titans. And so don't look now, but I said this before the season started that the AFC North looked every bit like the best conference in football. And like you said, the Browns, who continue to just hang around despite being a weird deal, like they're a very good defensive team with just kind of a funky-looking offense. Like you alluded to already, the Bengals are finally starting to hit their stride thanks to Joe Burrow having a healthy calf. And you've got the Ravens, who, again, just find ways to win. And we all kind of penciled in and thought, okay, these are two good football teams. The Ravens went out and beat the brakes on Seattle today.
Yeah. Look, the Ravens are 7-2. They are the class of the AFC North, but one of those two losses is against Pittsburgh. And, and granted, that was in Pittsburgh, so they will have a rematch. I think it's towards the end of the season. I'm looking at this. Actually, it's the last game of the season.
Okay.
So, and of course the Steelers haven't played the Bengals yet, and again, like I said, the Bengals are starting to really find their offensive mojo. So we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks when they face each other. The Steelers do it the Mike Tomlin way. Defense, they don't even run the ball that well.
No.
Right? I mean,
they're not.
The undrafted rookie out of Oklahoma State, is it Jalen Warren? I think that's his name.
Yeah, Jalen Warren had 11 carries for 88 yards.
I mean, he's the one that's starting to get in the boatload of the carries, much to my chagrin, because I have Najee Harris on my fantasy team.
Yeah.
But they're doing it with defense, and T.J. Watt is playing out of his mind. Mika Fitzpatrick, hopefully he comes back from his injury. But and Cam Hayward is back, and so that's just going to make that defense even more formidable. So they have I don't want to call it a bye, but they play the Packers at home next week, and then they travel to Cleveland. So we'll see for a rematch, and then they stay on the road and will stay in the great state of Ohio and play the Bengals for their first matchup this year. So we'll see. But the AFC North is definitely the class of the NFL for right now.
No, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Well, folks, look, we got a great Sunday night game tonight. Bills, Bengals, that's in Cincinnati. And, of course, everybody's right now on that Bengal bandwagon. I wouldn't be surprised if the Buffalo Bills found a way to pull this game out tonight. I'm going to go ahead and ride with Buffalo on this. And like we said, we got Chargers and Jets tomorrow. Who do you like tonight?
Yeah, I like Josh Allen. I really do. I still think that Joe Burrow is still trying to find himself. Joe Mixon hasn't really gotten on track with the running game. The only thing is that it's in Cincinnati, and Buffalo hasn't played well on the road. So we will see what happens here. Stephon Diggs has to be a lot more productive. Gabe Davis has to be a lot more productive. They really don't have much of a running back tandem. I get it. They got number 4 back there, but so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I like Buffalo in this one.
Absolutely. Great minds think alike. Folks, you can find him at the Bitter Mike on both X as well as on the IG. And of course, you can find me at the Freddie D as well. For everybody in Kansas City, big win today, 21-14. Kansas City takes care of business over the Miami Dolphins. For the one, the only, our boy Tab behind Chief Studios and the one and only Bitter Mike Bad Boy, I'm still that dude, Fred Davis. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you on Wednesday.
See ya.